Hi guys, if you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Rachelle. I am back with another book video, and in this video I will be sharing with you my thoughts on these popular book talk books. I will be telling you in my opinion whether or not these books are worth the hype. Yeah, over the past few months I read a lot of book talk books. Some of these books were actually worth the hype, and then there's some where I'm just like, they're alright, but I feel like they're a little bit overhyped. And then there's also ones where I'm just like, I don't see why they're popular. I just don't agree with the general population. Yeah, so I am really excited to share with you guys my opinions on these popular books. But before we get into this video, if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon to stay up to date when and what I post, and give this video a thumbs up. And with that, let's get into talking about whether or not these book talk books are worth the hype. Alright, so the first book I will be talking about in this video is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Whether or not this book is worth the hype, it's a really tough decision. This is the first book in the series, and I'm gonna have to say this book isn't worth the hype, but the rest of the series is definitely worth the hype. It's actually one of my favorite series. So in my opinion, really just to push yourself through this book, get through it, just so you can read the rest of the series. In the entire series so far, I think this book is the hardest one to get through. And let me tell you why. This book is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I just didn't find it nasty enough. The character Tamlin in this story is essentially supposed to be the Beast, but in this first book, he just wasn't horrible enough to Feyre. He was pretty much a prince to her. And that kind of just defeats the whole beast aspect in Beauty and the Beast. There was also a heck ton of world building from the beginning to the middle of the book. And because there was just so much world building, the story was incredibly slow until the last chunk of the book. I would say it's the last quarter of the book. So with this book, you really have to be a patient reader. The last thing I have to say is that there is a romance element in this book. The chemistry is between Feyre and Tamlin, but in my honest opinion, I don't think this relationship was established well. I just didn't really feel the chemistry throughout the book. It was just kind of like at one point they became a couple, and I was just like, what? How did that happen? The next book is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I've got to say, this book is also a hard decision. There is like a 50% chance I will recommend this book, so I'm gonna have to say no, it's not worth the hype. This book just didn't really stand out to me. I didn't love it, nor did I hate it. I definitely felt like the concept of the book was really cool though. If you guys don't know what this book is about, it is about a woman who has basically hit rock bottom in her life. She's miserable and she's depressed, but at one point she finds herself in the Midnight Library, where every book in this library shows her an alternate reality of her life. It shows her what her life could be like if she made certain decisions. So in this book, this woman visits these alternate realities that she could possibly have, and she refines the meaning and purpose to her life. This book definitely has a lot of inspiring quotes. If you ever feel doubtful about your life, it just gives you a new perspective on life, and I have to say that if you ever find yourself in a rut, read this book because it will make you feel better. The next book I will be talking about is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I have to say this book was definitely not worth the hype. I really wanted to love this book, but I just couldn't. The book was basically set in high school in the fairy realm. Therefore, the drama and the tension in the story is what you would expect in high school. It kind of felt like I was reliving my high school experience, and I was getting flashbacks to all the things I didn't like about high school. And personally, I find that the drama associated with high school is just very unsatisfying to read. Yeah, I was pretty annoyed reading the entire book that I DNF'd the entire series. I just couldn't bring myself to finish it. The next book I will be talking about is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book is definitely worth the hype. This book is a retelling of the Trojan War, and it's just written so beautifully. The writing and the language was just chef's kiss. Patroclus and Achilles are just so cute together. It's hard not to love them together. Honestly, their connection and their bond and their relationship is what motivates you to keep reading. I actually didn't even expect myself to enjoy reading Greek mythology, but I did. Something that really just confused me in this book though were the amount of characters. There was just so many characters introduced in this book, and I feel like I didn't get to know each character first before meeting the next one. Because of that, I kept forgetting who was who and which side they were on. I constantly found myself flipping back to previous pages to remind myself who they were. If you guys want to hear more about my thoughts on this book, I did do a reading vlog for it, and in that vlog I also review the book. That video will be linked up in the info card. The next book I will be talking about is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This book is worth the hype. If you are looking for a cute rom-com, try this book. This book falls into the enemies to lovers trope, which is actually one of my favorite tropes, because with this trope always comes very funny banter between the two characters. It's also very interesting to see the shift, how the characters go from hating each other with a burning passion to falling in love with each other. The workplace romance is also super fun and cute because there is this competitiveness going on. The only negative thing I have to say about this book is that it started off a little bit slow, but once you get through the first couple of chapters, the pacing of the story picks up. The next book is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I'd say this book is worth it. This book is sort of another workplace romance. They aren't exactly in the office setting, but they're both authors, so they work on their own time, and the two characters are actually neighbors. So you kind of get the workplace vibes, but it's not really in an office workplace setting. What I found very interesting about this book is how it combines the lightheartedness of rom-coms with some heavier and dark subjects. I also have to say that this book is a slow burn romance. You definitely have to read quite a bit of it before you really get into it. The next book is also another book by Emily Henry, and it is titled People We Meet on Vacation. This is an unpopular opinion, but I have to say this book was not worth the hype. For those of you who like this book, sorry guys. I just couldn't get into this book, and as I kept reading, it just became more and more unsatisfying to read. I had to force myself to finish reading this book. This book dragged on for me because I couldn't get attached to the characters. Something that's really important for me in storytelling are the characters. If I don't like the characters, it makes it really hard for me to like the story. Also, this title makes absolutely no sense to me. It's titled People We Meet on Vacation, but the two lovers in this book don't even meet on vacation. They were old friends who took a vacation together. Let's just take that in for a moment. The next book is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This book is absolutely worth the hype. It is a college romance and it is also a hockey romance. I might be a little biased, but I love sports romances. This book also happens to fall under the fake dating trope, which is another one of my favorite tropes. The fake dating trope always just has this energy to it. I feel like it kind of just lights the story on fire. I feel like most books that fall under the fake dating trope are some of the best books to get you out of a reading slump. This book is nicely paced, there's tension, lots of back and forth funny banter, and it's just overall a fun read. Plus, I feel like you kind of fall in love with the characters. I sure did, at least. This book is the first book in the Off-Campus series, and honestly, I'd recommend you to read the entire Off-Campus series. There's also a spin-off series called Briar U, and it's also pretty good, so you should also read that one as well. I actually made a video talking about all the books in the Off-Campus and Briar U series. If you are interested in hearing more about both series, you can find that video in the info card in the top right corner. The next book is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This book, in my opinion, was not worth the hype, and it is probably another unpopular opinion. This book flips back and forth between the past and present. The writing in the present was fine, but the writing in the past was very unsatisfying for me. It was written sort of poetically, and I just wasn't a fan of that. Also, the characters in the past really just annoyed me. I actually think I got through this book pretty fast, not because I enjoyed it or found it good, but because I just wanted to get through the book so I can get started on the next book I wanted to read. The next book I will be talking about is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is 100% worth the hype. It is probably my favorite book I've read so far. I absolutely love the old Hollywood vibe of this book, and Evelyn Hugo is just such a badass character who literally has no regrets for anything she does in her life. It is so empowering to read about a character who's willing to do anything to get what she wants. It's just so easy to love her character. Evelyn's story is just so beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. You really just feel all the feels when you're reading this book. This book is incredibly written and extremely captivating to read. I never found myself bored at one point during this book. I was hooked from the beginning, and I definitely recommend this book to anyone. That's how good this book is. I might be a little biased with this mini review of the book. Like I said earlier, this book does have the old Hollywood vibe. It basically takes place in the filmmaking industry, and if you didn't know, I am a film student, so I kind of just fell in love with this book because of the filmmaking aspect. I mean, it was just kind of nice to see how things were done in the industry back then. The next book is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This book isn't really worth the hype. I feel like I've talked about this book a lot on my channel already in previous videos, so I'm sorry if what I'm gonna say is a little repetitive, but I will try to keep it short and sweet. I feel like this book had the opportunity to be great, but the writing style kind of just prevented it from achieving that level of greatness. The writing style was just very juvenile, and it was very unsatisfying to read. It's classified as young adult, but it felt more like a middle grade book to me. There was also a lack of description when it came to describing the powers of the Grisha. After finishing this first book in the series, series, I just couldn't bring myself to finish the rest of the series. So I also DNF'd the rest of the series. The next book I will be talking about is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This book is definitely worth the hype. It is so cute. The Love Hypothesis is another workplace romance, and it falls under the fake dating trope. Can you see a pattern of what I like in romance novels? The pacing of this book was nice. It wasn't too slow or fast. It was so easy to like the characters in this book, and the story events were just enjoyable to read. This book was actually so addicting right from the first page. I pretty much finished this book in one day, and that rarely happens because I am a slow reader. If you are looking for a fun romance that's also a quick read this book. The next book is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. It's hard to say whether or not this book is worth the hype. I'm gonna have to say no, it's not worth the hype. There is a 50-50 chance that I will recommend this book to someone. Don't get me wrong, this book was quite enjoyable to read in the moment, but it was in no way memorable for me. The story just isn't something I would remember months later. This is something I have to say, but the writing style is so much better than it was in Shadow and Bone. There's actually 2 books to this series. It's a duology, and I've got to say that this first book is the better read in my opinion. My final thoughts on this book is that it wasn't bad, it was just a little overhyped. If you guys want to hear more about my thoughts about Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, which is the second book in the duology, I also did a reading vlog for these 2 books, and it is linked up in the info card. The last book I will be talking about in this video is Verity by Colleen Hoover. This book is definitely worth the hype. This was a thriller romance, and boy was it a page turner. I have never read a book with these 2 genres mixed together, and I gotta say it was quite refreshing. This was a book where I was hooked right from the first page. The very first story event in this book is definitely something you would not expect in a romance. In my opinion, that is the thing that pulls you into the story and makes you want to keep reading from that point on. This book was such a quick read because not one part of the book makes you feel bored. The pacing is nice, and because it's a thriller, the events that happened in the story just keeps you at the edge of your seat. I honestly love how dark some parts of the story were. I think I just have a thing for dark characters because I always find it so interesting to find out why the character is the way they are and why they think like that. Dark characters are just more three-dimensional in my opinion. If you have read this book, and if you were wondering, I am team manuscript. Alright friends, that is it for this video. Those are my opinions on whether or not these book talk books are worth the hype. If you have read any of these books, let me know your thoughts on them, and also in the comments down below, let me know if you agree or disagree with my thoughts. I would love to hear what you have to say. Before I go, be sure to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up, and also follow me on all of my social media and on Goodreads. All of the links to my social media will be in the description box below, and with that, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!
Pull the key out the ignition. Run your mouth but I never listen. You hold me back, will never last. Keep talking all your shit. Wondering how all this started. You left me broken hearted. You flip my words, yeah, this love hurts. Keep talking all your shit.